Super Bowl time is nearing, and of course, blockchain might take a front and center spot. Today, we'll be breaking down a slew of tokens and give you guys some narrative on how maybe this plays out on a trade. So make sure and stay tuned right here. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, before we want to get started today, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Lux Algo. If you guys are looking to enhance your trading experience, make sure and visit luxalgo.com. We will use some of the chart indices a little later, so make sure and stick around for those. I'll show you kind of how we use them and my favorite tools with using Lux Algo. All you have to do is click the link down below. It does help the channel out. All right, let's get into a couple of points. I want to go to the first clip here, and this clip is on CNBC, and it's a little bit more around what is driving the narrative for not only Super Bowl, but also what could be tuned into the crypto markets as well. Listen in.
4 times the amount, and what does that come out to? $64 billion?
Yeah, last year's Super Bowl, the betting was $16 billion. So the betting on the rest of the NFL playoffs is 4x. So I think this year we're going to see obviously a larger volume of betting because you have now more states that have legalized betting. Roughly this year, we're talking about $80 billion on all the other playoff games combined. This past weekend, those 4 games estimate around $20 billion spent on wagering for those games. You've got 10 times more dollars bet on the Lions right now, the 4 teams left, 10 times the amount bet on them to win the Super Bowl. So there is a huge exposure for the books.
All right, so the thing here is we're getting into a narrative that could play into a handful of crypto projects and blockchain and NFT projects that could line up around Super Bowl, but also kind of going forward in sports and how streaming is going to work. I want to go to this next clip because this talks about sports betting and streaming. Listen in.
You combine the streaming revenue that put money down, they're going to watch.
All of these leagues know that they covet the younger fan. So we've seen soccer do this with Apple and their massive deal. We're now seeing Amazon try to throw a life raft to Diamond Sports Group. Technology has infiltrated every aspect of life, every industry, including gambling. And when you have these in-game bets, this is something where people can bet on the fly. So when we watch these games next weekend, there are going to be lines not just before the game, but during the game. Every quarter increases engagement and boosts the business, both for the league, the teams, and obviously the gambling companies.
All right, so they hit on a few points here, and many of these have already started to deploy NFT strategies. If you think about DraftKings, good example here. Here's Cathie Wood, who has been betting on DraftKings for quite some time. Now, she started to make an exit here, rightly so. I mean, DraftKings, I'll show on the chart a little bit later, absolutely been overperforming. So you do want to take some profit off the table. But she really timed this perfectly in terms of her position there on the purple and DraftKings current pricing right there, continuing to climb. Likelihood, could this be a continued narrative going forward around these kinds of programs and also some of the crypto projects could align up with this as well. Interesting, of course, this right here, A16Z and ARK Invest, $37 million round for Mythical Games. So this is one of the projects that we're watching, especially around the Super Bowl. So is there a potential Super Bowl pump coming for a handful of tokens? Remember, Mythical has some very strategic ideas and connections with the NFL, and I'll explain that, and also with Web3 as a whole. So this could be kind of an integrated opportunity here for Mythical. So if you look at Mythical over on their website, Mythos Foundation, you can kind of look in here and you can see some pretty big names in terms of partnerships. Further on down, their Web3 and metaverse infrastructure, obviously Animoca Brands. And then if you go into their special counsel, that's of course Yatsu over at Animoca Brands. So again, just more Web3 royalty involved in what's happening at Mythical. And do not forget that when Mythical rolled out, what they went out with was NFL Rivals. NFL Rivals, of course, launched on Prime Gaming. And this happened at a time in which we saw some pretty significant moves. And I'll show you some data here on CryptoSlam because this is kind of interesting in looking at just what NFL Rivals did during this is the all-time, but during its launch, of course, kind of a project brewing up, and then the launch takes off there on Amazon. And I think now we're dealing with a potential exposure scenario where people are going to start to realize, hey, these NFT projects and games and integrations are becoming mainstream. If you look at the charts, Mythos kind of coming in right here, Mythos Chain. Let me kind of zoom in on that right there, just to give an example. I mean, look at the titans above Mythos Chain. This is a very small project in comparison, not as easy to get to in terms of if you're trying to buy the token, but definitely quite a bit different than what we've seen in the rest of the ecosystem. If you go further out, you can kind of see a little bit more. This is on the 24-hour, also still holding in there as a top 10 at number 8 right now on blockchains by sales volume. Now imagine what could happen around this if we do get a sign that that has anything to do with the NFL and possibly the Super Bowl coming up. I also want to kind of showcase right here, just to show this was the partnership, NFL Rivals, the tie-in to Mythos, and of course Mythical. And among others, there's some others that I think will show examples of that you should keep an eye on going forward. This was Digidaigaku, which also did their launch during the NFL. Some people kind of were a little bit confused about this. Rightly so. It was one of those if you know type things. But the point is that this happened on the Super Bowl. And that to me is still continuing to show some pretty innovative marketing here for sure. All right, so remember this was a free mint. So if you were flipping it at the time, you'd end up at around a quick flip of about half an ETH, about $700 at the time. Floor prices began to drop, and then currently it's set at around 0.2. Only difference is if you go in and look at where this NFT is now, it's holding a position of the listed tokens or the listed NFTs at over 4 ETH. This is 1 year later. So good move on those who got that free mint, were able to go out and get this. So could we see something like that happening in this year's Super Bowl? So one that you could keep an eye on if you are a Polygon fan is, of course, DotSwoosh. Remember Polygon, Nike, Artifact, all tied together at the hip. Interesting thing here is DotSwoosh was and is planned to integrate into the Madden gaming. So could that play a role in this year's run-up for Super Bowl? There could be some strategic things happening in blockchain. I still think we might see an exchange. We could possibly see a Bitcoin ETF play into this. There's a lot of different possibilities here of getting right in front of mainstream audiences with some of these kinds of projects, whether it's NFTs, exchanges, and ETFs, all of which I think have a great opportunity. I think the NFTs fit the best because of when you think about DraftKings, the NFL, and what they're trying to do around brand IP, the NFTs match up very nicely. Most likely these will be more integrated sponsorships as well, not like a regular commercial. All right, so this is Rollbit. Rollbit is a little bit more difficult since this is a US game. You know, the onboarding and KYC required here might not necessarily get this one in the right place. But the point being is that if this was soccer or, okay, maybe, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case here. All right, so one of the bigger ones out here, of course, is Flow that plays into this. This, of course, is the NFT for the actual Super Bowl ticket this year, and you can kind of see Flow right there, built on Flow. So that also tied in, remember, Dapper Labs, the connection to NFL All Day, the tie-in to the NFL as a whole from an NFT standpoint. This is another one that could also move. Don't forget, this was an ad that was done here for NFL All Day, and I think going in the fact that they've got Terry Bradshaw, one of the big announcers out there in the NFL, and what a great one this is, because that's the catch, of course, with Franco Harris. But anyway, the point being is it's showing mainstream NFL sporting events tying in to blockchain and NFT. And I think that's the key you got to watch for going forward. So this is ones that we're kind of keeping a close eye on. I want to play a clip here because they go into a little bit more around NFL All Day and the playoffs. Listen in.
What if you could own a moment?
First hunt!
I know the moment I'd want. Sunday, January 16th, the playoffs. 30 of 39. Own the moments that matter. Buy, sell, and earn. Officially licensed NFL Digital Collectibles. NFL All Day.
I mean, that's big time right there. That should show you the validity of what's happening in the NFT space for sure. This is Flow on the chart. And I'm using the Lux Algo oscillator down there on the oscillator matrix just to look at this. This, of course, is going back to a year ago when Flow and all of this integration into the NFL actually occurred. And that was a 100% move just in a very short period of time between end of December and right there around mid-February, which was right when the Super Bowl occurred. So this may be an opportunity for some of these plays. And if you look at Mythos token, this, of course, right here showing the 1 year on this one, this is currently way down here on the price chart. Is there an opportunity here for Mythos with what they've been able to do? And do we get a little bit of a key in to what's happening with the Super Bowl? As I said, Super Bowl happening in just a few weeks. Will we start to see more ads integrated into this year's Super Bowl? And as I said, could be a Bitcoin ETF ad, could be an exchange ad. There's a lot of ways that this could get integrated, along with these that are integrated partners like NFL All Day with Flow, and then what we've seen around some of these other projects. So keep an eye out there. And if you guys have maybe an NFL and/or Super Bowl token or NFT that you think is kind of lined up with this, let us know. Drop some comments down in the chat. We'd love to hear more about them. And of course, if you're not in our Diamond Circle, make sure and get in right now. It's a great place to get additional content, podcasts, and all that good stuff. If you're not following me on X, it's just @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.